right, here we are. So you will need to use this world values data analysis tool for one of the free response questions on the final exam. So remember, your final exam will be, the first half will be multiple choice, and then you'll have 2 free response questions. Each of the free response questions will require at least a 3-paragraph response. The first free response question will deal with your online data analysis that you'll do with this world values survey. So I wanted to walk you through how to use this tool and what I need you to do for me. So you will have the link to this online data analysis page for the survey. So you'll go here, it'll look like this, and then you'll choose one of the top 2 surveys here, either 2010 to 2014 or 2005 to 2009. The reason I'm allowing you to use the older survey, if you wish, is because some of the countries in the more recent survey are not in the older survey. If the country that you want to use is available in the more recent survey, use that more recent survey. But let's say I wanted to compare the United States to Iran. Iran is not in the newer survey, so I would need to use the older survey here. So I clicked on it there. And remember, one of the countries you will always select is the United States, because you're comparing the United States to another country. So let's say I wanted to compare it to Iran. So I click the United States here, and I find Iran over here. Click there. So I've got 2 countries selected, and then you click Next. When you click Next, a list of survey questions shows up. Now, what they don't have in this list is the question word for word. They have kind of a general synopsis of the question, the idea of the question. Once you click on it, then you'll see that you'll be able to see the full wording of the question. So let's say I wanted to look at what people in the United States and Iran think is the most serious problem of the world. And I'm going to choose this one first because I'm going to show you that in some cases you may not get data from a country. Because if I click on this one, you'll see that Iran does not come up, only the United States. If you click on a country and that happens, back up. You do not have responses from the country that you want, and don't use that question, okay? So let me then back up here and go back to the survey questions and find one for which there is data for both countries. Let's go here to question 152. Democracy, governments tax the rich and subsidize the poor. Well, that sounds interesting to me. I want to figure out, comparing Americans to Iranians, whether people are comfortable with a system that taxes the rich and subsidizes the poor, essentially gives more welfare to the poor. So I click on that question. Good. I've got responses from both countries here. So you're going to see this graph or this chart that comes up. And you see the wording at the bottom. Now you get the full wording of the question. Many things may be desirable, but not all of them are essential characteristics of democracy. Please tell me for each of the following things how essential you think it is as a characteristic of democracy. Use this scale where 1 means not at all an essential characteristic of democracy, and 10 means it definitely is an essential characteristic of democracy. So this was posed to the people who took the survey. So here's the chart. But what I think makes more sense, and what I ultimately want you to print out for me, is you're going to go over here to this graph button in the top right, and you're going to click that, and it's going to pull up a graph. Now, you've only selected 2 countries, but in most cases, 3 bars will come up for each value. The light blue bar here, don't worry about that. Okay, I believe that is measuring all people who took the survey across countries. What you're concerned about is the yellow bar and the green bar, which is comparing the United States to the other country that you've chosen. So let's look at this survey here for a second. Essentially, governments tax the rich and subsidize the poor. So if you look here, what's interesting, I found this to be interesting, is that more people in the United States think that that is not an essential characteristic of democracy. Fewer people in Iran think it is not an essential character of democracy. This is the one value over here. If I go over to value number 10, you see that more people in Iran think that this is an essential characteristic of democracy. Still not a majority, but more than in the United States. What this tells me, based on the survey, is that people in Iran tend to be more socialist leaning than those in the United States. Now, don't freak out. Remember, people hear the word socialism and freak out. What I mean is, in terms of a social democracy, it seems that people think that the state and ultimately the rich should take on a greater responsibility for social welfare in Iran, and fewer people do here in the United States. So you have that graph there. And then what I need you to do is just go here and print that graph chart out for me and bring it into the exam period. You're going to need to experiment, because you're going to need to not only print out a graph or chart here, you are going to need to print out an article that gives you specific information or evidence that helps you analyze the data you found here. So you're going to bring in this chart and an article. So you're going to need to play around and experiment, because you may find a question that is interesting to you, but the responses might not be interesting to you. You may find a question that's interesting to you. You may find responses that are interesting to you, but you may not be able to find an article that you feel is going to help you to write or gives you any extra analysis or evidence. So you're going to have to poke around and find both a question and responses and then an article that is interesting to you. One important thing to note is that responses between the United States and another country don't have to be wildly different to be interesting. It may be that you find that responses between the United States and another country are similar, and that might be interesting to you, and that might be something you didn't expect. So be open to that as well. So that is how you use this tool for that first free response question that you'll get.